Hello, I'm Bev Kavoris. Whether you're an accomplished cook or one that's totally new to the kitchen, it's always a shock to suddenly realize that you're now on your own and Mother's not there to help you. If you cook at all, you know that certain basic kitchen tools and accessories are necessary. And these are the things that we want to show you. For all the rest depends on your lifestyle and culinary ability.
That first kitchen can either be a nightmare or a dream, but you probably won't have a lot to say about its size or arrangement, for no doubt the big things, the stove, refrigerator, and dishwasher, will come with the rent. However, there are a few of the smaller appliances that will make your life in the kitchen easier and more interesting. First, you are lucky if you have a microwave. If not, you're either going to have to buy one or learn to survive without it. You've probably grown up with them and know how to use them, but each brand is different, so be sure to read the directions. Always remember never to use them with anything metal or foil. A real boon for the busy cook, there is nothing that provides the slow cooking convenience of a crock pot. Designed to cook foods at low temperatures over long periods of time, you just fill and forget, which makes it wonderful for chili, soups, and stews. While you may have food processors or blenders, you'll find that a little handheld mixer, one that will just plug in wherever you're working, is a lot easier to clean.
In addition to your appliances, the rest of that first kitchen will likely consist of hand-me-downs, or what you can scrounge from Mom. When you do buy, get the best you can afford, for good kitchenware will last a lifetime.
For starters, you'll need 2 skillets, a large heavy one for the big things, and a smaller fry pan for eggs, omelets, and all the rest. Today, you can't seem to avoid the non-stick kind, and these are fine if you can remember not to use metal utensils. But for durability and easy care, we prefer the new bonded aluminum ones, or an aluminum skillet with a lining of stainless steel. But whatever their style or material, they should be thick and heavy, for thin pans don't heat evenly and will burn food. The French have used copper for years, and it's the first choice of professionals, for nothing cooks better. Be sure to send an extra thank you to the person who gave it to you, for it's outrageously expensive.
Grandma really loves you if she gave you her old iron skillet that she used for grilling everything from pancakes to baking cornbread. The old ones never stick, but it takes years to build up that slick, seasoned finish, and you do have to take care of them. When you're finished, simply wipe out with a paper towel or wash with a cloth, but never use abrasives. Rinse and dry completely over heat, then re-oil with vegetable oil or spray to keep them stick-proof. You'll also need at least 2 saucepans with lids, a small quart and a half size, and a larger 3-quart one, plus a big 6 or 8-quart pot or kettle for chili, soups, and pasta. For this, we like stainless steel since it cleans so easily. Even if you don't bake cookies, a couple of baking sheets are handy for pizza, heating bread, or just for setting under dishes in the oven. You can't have too many mixing bowls, and while plastic's fine, hope that someone gives you glass, or better yet, a good set of stainless steel. Fitted with tight lids, they're great for storing leftovers. There's lots of pretty heat-proof baking dishes that can go directly from oven to table, and you'll probably want several sizes for your casseroles. Be sure they'll fit in the microwave, and remember, they will break if you put them directly in the refrigerator while they're hot.
People don't often think about knives, but they too are important. Everything you cook has to be cut, peeled, or chopped. Owning a set of good knives won't immediately make you a chef, but learning how to use them will certainly make your job a lot easier. They come in all sizes and shapes, and while the good ones are expensive, buy the best you can afford, for they'll last forever if you take good care of them. If you have good knives, invest in a steel and use it often. The steel is simply a long metal rod with a handle, and while they don't actually sharpen, they do straighten and smooth the edge. Have the salesman show you how to use it. Knives vary greatly in size and weight, so pick one that's utterly comfortable for you. While you may have others, all you really need is a large chef's knife whose wide blade is especially designed for slicing and chopping, and the smaller paring knife. These come in varying lengths, and if you can afford it, buy several. It's also nice to have a stainless steel serrated slicing knife for breads, tomatoes, and other soft foods. They should be at least 8 inches long. The end may be either round or pointed, and since the serrated edge is never sharpened, they don't need to be expensive. If you have good knives, treat them with respect, and always keep them sharp, for a dull knife is both useless and dangerous. There are lots of good sharpeners on the market, and every year or so it's wise to have your knives professionally honed. Never use a knife to stir food in a hot skillet, and don't put them in the dishwasher, for heat ruins the edge. To clean, wash them separately with soap and water, wipe them dry, then store the knives in a slotted wooden block or a wall rack. Never keep them in a drawer where they can bang against one another. To keep them sharp, never cut on hard surfaces or the countertop, but always use a wooden chopping block or plastic cutting board. We prefer a large wooden board that lets you slice fruits and vegetables on one side, turn, and cut raw meat and poultry on the other. To clean, it should be washed thoroughly and allowed to drain dry.
Open any kitchen drawer and you'll find all kinds of gadgets, most of which are never used. For no matter how many you own, you'll find yourself coming back to your favorites over and over again. Fortunately, most of these things are not expensive, so when they wear out, just throw them away.
First, you'll need at least 2 long-handled metal kitchen spoons, one of which should be slotted, an assortment of wooden spoons to use with your non-stick ware, and a couple of wire whisks for blending and mixing. Obviously, you need a kitchen fork and a wide slotted spatula for turning pancakes and hamburgers, but it's also nice to have a pair of kitchen tongs. One of the handiest things in the kitchen is an inexpensive swivel-bladed vegetable peeler for potatoes, carrots, cucumbers, and all the rest. Use the tip to remove the eyes and other blemishes. Of course, you'll always need a can opener, and if you don't have an electric one, the sturdy handheld models work just fine and take a lot less space. There are all kinds of corkscrews, but the easiest to use is the one with double levers. Simply twist into the cork and push the levers down. For grating fresh cheese over your pasta, buy a simple flat grater, one with both coarse and medium holes and a slicer blade, which is also useful for slicing vegetables directly into your salad. Speaking of pasta, if you don't have a special pot with a basket insert, you'll need a large colander, one with big holes that you can sit over the sink to drain. Also pick up a medium strainer for the little jobs. The only way you can test roast and poultry for doneness is with a good meat thermometer. There are 2 kinds, the type you leave in while the food cooks, and our preference, the new instant reading ones, which are inserted, then removed. Push them both into the thickest part of the meat, but be careful not to touch the bone.
If you don't do anything else, get a good pepper mill, for there's absolutely no substitute for the full, pungent flavor of fresh ground pepper. They can be wooden, plastic, or even the new push-button electric grinders. But for the kitchen, our favorite is a little old-fashioned spice mill that literally grinds piles of pepper. Boy, does that work great.
Black peppercorns are usually found on the spice shelf, and they're simply the dried berries of the pepper vine. The white ones have had the hulls removed. White pepper is slightly more pungent and is used mainly in clear soups and salads where the black specks might not be desired. Don't confuse peppercorns with the totally different fiery red pepper used in chili and Mexican dishes, which is simply ground chili pods.
Whenever possible, buy whole herbs and spices and crush them yourself, since they hold their flavor so much longer. In general, look for bright green color as an indication of freshness. Don't keep them over the stove, and do keep them tightly closed. But where you keep them, whether on a shelf or in a rack, is not terribly important, since they all grow stale with age. Try and replace them at least once a year and start over. For starters, you can survive with a blended meat and poultry seasoning, an Italian or Greek seasoning, and a good chili powder. As your cooking abilities grow, then add the things you need as they appear in your recipes. Herbs like marjoram, rosemary, thyme, and bay leaf for meat, poultry, and vegetables. tarragon and oregano for Italian dishes, chives and dillweed for fish, and nutmeg, cloves, and cinnamon for baking.
Professional cooks store their salt in open containers and just use a pinch in this and a pinch in that. But at home, most of us use a good heavy salt shaker with a non-rust top. If you're in a humid climate, add a few grains of rice to keep it dry. It absorbs all that moisture. To measure things like herbs and spices, use a set of measuring spoons, which can either be metal or plastic. And for the dry ingredients, you'll need a set of graduated cups. And for the liquids, use a clear pitcher that will hold at least 2 cups and be divided into 1/4 cup increments.
The Chinese have been steaming their food for centuries with their funny-looking bamboo trays that are set over a wok. Today, there's a flood of special pots that have been designed just for steaming. But if you don't have these, buy one of those little folding metal baskets that you can use with any saucepan. You'll probably choose your canister set to go with your kitchen. But whether you use copper, glass, or wood, above all, be sure they have large, easy-access openings with tight-fitting lids. Most stoves have timers, but an extra one that you can carry around is always handy. Like an alarm clock, you wind it up, set for the cooking time, and when it goes off, you know it's time to check. For all the hot dishes, you'll want to keep heavy insulated hot pads, trivets, pot holders within easy reach to keep from burning your tables and yourself. Be sure they are thick enough and fit all the way around the handle.
I know this sounds old-fashioned, but an apron saves you from lots of ruined clothes, protects you from all sorts of splatters and spills, and you should never cook without one. There are lots of trendy ones, but for everyday use, get one made of heavy, washable material that hangs comfortably around the neck, has pockets, and is easy to tie.
No matter how many times you've done it, grocery shopping is different when it's your own money. It's amazing to discover the number of things you can suddenly do without. Grocery stores have become so big and shopping takes so much time that we suggest you pick a favorite and stick with it. Try to cut down the number of trips and do more of your buying at one time. Above all, never go to the store without a list. During the week, keep notes of the things you need, check the newspaper ads, and plan your menus. Then make a complete shopping list arranged according to the store's layout. You'll soon develop your own particular shopping patterns. Some buy meat first, while others head for the produce section. But however you do it, and whatever you do, get those things on your list first.
What you buy depends entirely on your likes and dislikes, but you know there are certain basic staples like flour and sugar that you always have to keep on hand, and these are the things we want to talk about. When you buy wheat flour, choose the blend marked all-purpose, since those labeled self-rising are only flours to which leavening has been added. A 5-pound bag is usually enough unless you're doing a lot of baking. A little sack of cornmeal is nice to have around, but the others, whole wheat, graham, and rye flour, should be purchased only when you need them. Buy the regular white granulated cane sugar for everyday use, but if you bake, you'll also need confectioner's sugar for frostings and other desserts. The brown sugars, both light and dark, are only sugars that have had molasses added for increased flavor. Brown sugar hardens easily and once opened should be stored in a tightly sealed jar on the shelf.
Everyone knows about pasta, and all dried pasta is pretty much alike, only the shapes are different. You're probably most familiar with the long strands of spaghetti, and this is the one you'll use the most. Buy all the rest, including the lasagna noodles and the elbow macaroni as you need them. Like pasta, rice is a healthy substitute for potatoes and, of course, a necessity if you cook Chinese. We prefer a good white, long-grain variety and keep it in a closed container since it makes a real mess if it spills. Those marked instant simply have been pre-cooked for your convenience.
You've heard a lot about oils and probably are totally confused. It gets even more confusing when you see what's on the shelf. Canola, peanut, and olive oils are the best ones for you, and fortunately are also the best for cooking since they all withstand high heat without burning. Of these, we prefer the more expensive extra virgin olive oil for sautéing vegetables in our Italian dishes. This same flavorful oil can then be also drizzled over salads, fresh sliced tomatoes, and to enliven pizzas. When you need a lot of oil for deep frying, select a bland, inexpensive vegetable oil, such as soybean or corn oil, but they do break down with heat and should not be reused. The vegetable oil sprays are wonderful for greasing baking dishes, and just a quick touch in the frying pan is an easy way to reduce fat and calories. But they are highly flammable and should never be sprayed into a hot skillet or open flame. The margarines are simply hydrogenated vegetable oil, and while fine at the table, they often contain water and really are not suitable for cooking or frying.
You can buy chopped garlic preserved in oil, and you'll find dried garlic powder in the spice section. But everybody is in complete agreement that there's no substitute for the earthy perfume of fresh garlic. A relative of the onion, you'll find it in the produce section, where it may be packaged, braided into long strings, or perhaps in bulk. Buy only large, firm, dry heads and avoid any that have sprouted or have mold on their paper-like skin. These heads will keep for weeks if stored in a cool, dry place with plenty of ventilation.
While not a seasoning, dried onion soup mix is a quick and tasty way to add flavor to everything from meatloaf to casseroles. And the packaged chili and spaghetti mixes can also be great time savers. Don't forget to keep both beef and chicken broth on the shelf in some form, either canned, dried in packages, or as the old-fashioned bouillon cubes. Remember that the dried cubes tend to be quite salty, so adjust your recipes accordingly.
Of the many vinegars available, the regular old apple cider vinegar is still the one most used in recipes. Unless you're canning pickles, one small bottle will be enough. Wine vinegar and the expensive, great-tasting balsamic vinegars are the ones most often used in a salad dressing and at the table.
Among other condiments, you'll probably want mayonnaise, a jar of mustard, either the Dijon or yellow kind, a bottle of ketchup for hamburgers, soy sauce for Chinese and to use in marinades, Worcestershire or some other steak sauce, and of course, no kitchen is complete without the time-honored fiery bottle of Tabasco. Remember to refrigerate all these after they are opened.
Whether to buy fresh, frozen, canned, or dried foods can be a matter of convenience as well as price. Normally, fresh or frozen vegetables taste better and are more nutritious, but when you're in a hurry, it's nice to be able to just open a can and heat. We always keep a few cans of plain tomato sauce on hand. Tomato paste is only a concentrated sauce. And the canned mushroom and cheese soups are handy ways to enliven vegetables and casseroles.
Read and compare the labels for weight, quantity, and size, and don't be afraid to try out the store brands, for they can be equally good at a far lower price. Speaking of cans, never buy a dented can or one that shows any sign of bulging, for it's probably spoiled. In spite of their bad press, you really can't cook without eggs. There's no difference in quality between the brown and the white eggs, but fresh eggs are important, so always check the expiration date on the box. Always check the carton for cracked eggs, and never use an egg with a cracked or broken shell, which may contain salmonella. Like eggs, you have to have milk. It spoils in a hurry, so check the datings and buy only if it's really fresh. Don't buy more than you need, keep it cold, and dump it when it smells bad. Learn to be flexible with your recipes. For example, it's perfectly fine to add water to reconstitute dry milk, and evaporated milk can substitute for cream. If you're watching your fat intake, both are available as skim milk. While you're at the dairy case, pick up some cheddar cheese for cooking, and Parmesan or Romano for grating over pasta. For real cheese taste, buy it in chunks and grate it yourself. Keep tightly sealed in the refrigerator, and if it gets moldy, just trim and use. It seems that every recipe calls for onions. There's so little difference between the common white and yellow Bermuda that we usually buy the cheapest. Look for onions that are dry and firm and show no softness or rot at the top. The sweeter red onion always looks pretty and are usually eaten raw, but they don't keep very well, so buy them in small quantities. When you get them home, store in a cool, dry place with lots of air circulation. Green onions, or scallions as they are sometimes called, are just immature onions with the green tops attached. They are always sold in bunches, but don't buy any which look dried out or with wilted tops.
Like onions, you'll always need potatoes. Of the many varieties, your best buy is the all-purpose Idaho or baking potato. But if you're planning mashed potatoes or potato salad, the smaller, firm red potato is really better for boiling. Potatoes are usually cheaper by the bag, but check closely to avoid any which have sprouted or have a greenish cast to the skin. Remove from the bag and store at home in a dark, dry, well-ventilated basket or bin. If they should sprout in storage, remove the sprouts and use them anyway.
Now that you have all this home, what do you do with it? Whether you're a person who likes everything behind closed doors or out in the open, set it up to suit yourself, for you're the one who has to use it.
It's really quite simple. Place your pots and pans near the stove, your dishes near the dishwasher, your dry foods on the shelf, your cold foods in the refrigerator, and your gadgets in a drawer. You clean things at the sink, so it makes sense to keep your soaps and cleaners nearby. But remember to keep the bad stuff up out of reach of little hands that may come to visit. Near here, too, you'll want to position your paper towel rack. Hopefully, you'll have a large counter space where you can mix and prepare food. Keep it clean and free of clutter. But this is the place to store your food processor, toaster, and mixers. And of course, you'll want your knives and cutting boards close at hand.
Regardless of how you do it, remember that no matter how much stuff you have or how many gadgets you own, you basically use the same things over and over again. And if it's not within easy reach, you won't use it. Hello, I'm Bev Kavoris. In this section, we want to acquaint the new chef with various cooking methods, the oft-times confusing language of the kitchen, how to plan a menu, and read a recipe. And finally, how to put a meal on the table that both looks and tastes good.
While anyone can cook, it's important that you understand and acquire the basic skills necessary to make your time in the kitchen a little easier and more satisfying. Probably the most important thing to know before you start is how to select the right cooking method to fit the dish. You are probably familiar with roasting, which, like baking, is a method of cooking meat in the oven with little or no added moisture. Little preparation time is necessary, usually just season and bake. It is best used with large tender cuts of meat like roast beef, hams, whole chickens, and of course, the Thanksgiving turkey. Before cooking any poultry, it's a good idea to rinse in cold water, then pat dry with a paper towel. Always thaw a frozen chicken or turkey in the refrigerator, or under cold running water, but never by simply letting them stand out. Remember to remove the package of giblets from the body before cooking. To hold their shape while roasting, tie the two legs together with a piece of cotton string, never nylon. Catch the wings together and tie across the breast. You may cook them with or without stuffing the body cavity, but never leave stuffing stand in raw poultry overnight. To know when it's done, insert a thermometer into the thickest part of the meat, being careful not to touch the bone. The juices of poultry and pork should run clear without any pink color, and meat at the thigh joints should be well cooked. When in doubt, cut into it, for undercooked chicken is terrible. Beef may be cooked to 135 degrees for rare or 155 degrees for medium, but pork and poultry must always be registered at 180 degrees for well done. Take it out and let it stand for 10 to 15 minutes covered with foil before carving. This keeps the meat juicy, but remember it will continue to cook slightly while setting. Always save those crusty pan juices for gravy or as a base for sauces. To deglaze the pan, add a little wine, water, or other liquid and scrape the residue free.
For far less expensive and just as nutritious, the tougher cuts of meat are best suited to the long, slow, moist heat cooking method known as braising to make them tender. For Grandma's pot roast, first season with salt and pepper, apply a light coat of flour to help it brown, then in a heavy pot, sear on all sides to seal in the juices. Add a little liquid and cook slowly for several hours in the oven until the meat is tender and flavorful. For a complete meal in a pot, add chunks of peeled potatoes, turnips, or carrots about an hour before it's done.
Despite the current low-fat trend, frying or sautéing is still the most popular of all cooking methods. Sauté means to cook with very little fat or oil, usually just a tablespoon or so. You quite often sauté onions and garlic to eliminate their raw taste. Cut or chop food into uniform size for even cooking. Be sure the pan is hot. Add the food and let it set a minute before tossing or stirring. To fry is generally understood to mean cooking in 1 inch or less of oil, while deep frying requires that the food be totally submerged, normally rising to the top when done. The oil should be kept consistently hot and the food should sizzle. Fry in batches if necessary. To retain the moisture and produce the crunchy coating of fried foods, they are often breaded by first dipping into flour or breadcrumbs.
Not just for steaks, the fierce hot heat of the grill is also a wonderful way to fix chicken, fish, and vegetables. Whether gas, electric, or charcoal, preheat the grill for 15 to 20 minutes before cooking. Since charcoal emits deadly carbon monoxide, never use it indoors. Always brush the hot grill with oil to prevent sticking, and turn with tongs instead of a fork to retain the juices. A touch of lemon added to the surface of the meat reduces flare-ups.
Fresh vegetables are best when steamed, for they retain both their color and taste. Rinse well, scrub with a brush if necessary, or peel, then place the veggies on a steamer rack in a saucepan and add enough water to just come up to the bottom of the rack. Cover tightly and cook over high heat. They are done when you can insert a knife easily. Season after cooking. They may also be boiled gently in very little water over medium heat until tender. Corn and potatoes, however, should be cooked in enough water to immerse them. Add a little salt and a touch of sugar to the corn for the increased taste. Frozen vegetables may either be cooked frozen or partially thawed, while canned veggies can just be heated in their own liquid since they normally don't require additional cooking. Never let vegetables sit in their cooking water to become soggy, but drain, season, and serve immediately.
Like computers, the kitchen has a language all its own, and to understand a recipe, it's necessary to know that specific terms mean specific action. Since most basic cookbooks include a glossary of these terms, if you don't understand, look it up. First, let's start with your knives. For virtually everything you do has to be cut or chopped. To slice food with the chef's knife, keep the point on the table. And while guiding the food with the other hand, cut down and forward with a rocking motion to make even slices.
The terms chopped, diced, and minced only refer to the size of the pieces. To coarsely chop an onion, for example, cut off the top, peel, and cut in half. Placing the cut side down, make even vertical slices up to, but not quite through the root end. Turn, and holding the knife flat, make several horizontal cuts. Finally, slice across the onion and even cubes will fall away. To dice this same onion, simply make more horizontal slices, which allows it to fall away in smaller pieces. You could further mince it by using the other hand to steady the knife, then rock back and forth rapidly, cutting into tiny bits. You often do this to mince garlic, parsley, and other herbs. To release the full flavor of raw garlic, break the bulb by hitting a sharp blow with the heel of your hand, and the individual cloves will fall away. Tap the clove to break the shell, peel, cutting off the root end. Using the flat of your knife, push it down and forward to crush, then chop it into a fine puree. Often large vegetables like zucchini and carrots are cut into little strips known as julienne. Cut into even slices, stack the slices on top of each other, and cut again into matchstick-like pieces.
You can loosen the skin of tomatoes and peaches by rubbing with the back of a knife and then peel. But it's easier if they are blanched or dipped in boiling water for about 30 seconds and the skin pulled off under a cold faucet. Green peppers are most easily seeded by cutting off-center into 4 sections and removing the ribs. They can then be cut into strips or diced. If you're handling the fiery chili peppers, be sure to wash your hands and above all, don't rub your eyes. To section grapefruit or oranges, remove the entire peel, then just cut wedges following the natural divisions of the fruit. Some recipes called for the zest of orange or lemon, which is the outer bit of the peel containing the flavorful oils. Using a small grater or a gadget called a zester, scrape only the colored part of the skin since the white layer underneath, called the pith, is bitter.
To separate an egg, tap in the middle and break, then pour the yolk from one half the shell to the other, allowing the white to fall into a bowl. More air is incorporated, and egg whites beat to a larger volume if they're at room temperature before separation. However, the bowl must be impeccably clean without even a tiny speck of the yolk or the slightest bit of grease. We degrease our bowls with a cut slice of lemon before beating egg whites. When beaten to stiff peaks, they're whipped until they're firm and the little tips will stand up by themselves. When baking, you're often required to fold another mixture into beaten egg whites. To do this, use a delicate circular motion to carefully mix without deflating the volume of the eggs. These are but a few examples of the techniques and terminology you'll need, so if you don't understand, once again, look it up.
In the kitchen, it really is true that if you can read a recipe, you can cook. Don't be put off by its size or complexity. For if you pay close attention to the ingredients and follow the instructions carefully, you can cook anything.
But before you start, read the recipe thoroughly, and then read it again. Be sure that you completely understand all the terms and techniques used. Pay close attention to the position of the comma. If the recipe calls for 1 cup sifted flour, sift the flour first. If it calls for 1 cup flour sifted, measure the flour first and then sift. Likewise, 1 cup pecans means to measure 1 cup of whole nut meats, while 1 cup pecans chopped indicates the nut meats have been chopped before measuring. Fortunately, those terms and abbreviations are pretty standard in most cookbooks. The capital C always equals 1 cup by volume, whether liquid or dry. A tablespoon is most often abbreviated TBSP, or sometimes with a capital T, while the teaspoon measure is referred to as TSP. Unless otherwise specified, all dry ingredients are measured level full. Always use the right size measure for the job. Fill to overflowing and scrape off the excess with a knife. The word heaping indicates all that you can get on the spoon, while a pinch is the amount of spice or seasoning you can hold between the thumb and forefinger. Be especially careful when measuring baking powder and baking soda, for these are the things that make foods light and can't be changed without drastically affecting the results. Liquid measurements are usually made with a glass cup graduated into divisions such as 1 cup, 1/2 cup, etc. Fill to the desired line and raise to eye level to check for accuracy. Salt and pepper to taste means just that, season to the cook's taste. Be careful with salt, for you can always add more if necessary. In the kitchen, reduce means that you concentrate flavor by evaporating liquid over high heat. Read your recipe very carefully, for it's important to know the confusing difference between reduce by 1/3 and reduce to 1/3. In the first, 1/3 of the liquid is evaporated, whereas in the second, only 1/3 of the liquid is left.
When you're ready to cook, get out the pots and pans and assemble the ingredients. Chop, measure, and prepare everything ahead of time. Be sure to choose the right sized pan for the job. Don't crowd the food in the skillet, and a too small casserole that bubbles over in the oven leaves a horrible mess. Pay close attention to the cooking temperatures and never put food in a cold oven. Preheat or bring up to cooking temperature for 15 to 20 minutes before using. Don't forget to turn back to bake, then set the timer when you place the food in the oven. Take it with you if you leave the kitchen or get caught on the telephone.
Since it's not our purpose to discuss specific recipes, but rather to show you techniques, let's start with the tossed green salad. There are really no fixed recipes for salads, and no two will ever be alike, since the ingredients always seem to vary. Just use your imagination and whatever you have on hand.
Lettuce or spinach is usually the base for most salads, but from there on it's your choice. Since lettuce is quite fragile and bruises easily, rinse gently in cold water, remove any discolored leaves, separate and pat dry with paper towels. Tear into bite-sized pieces rather than cut, for cutting turns the edges brown. Choose the rest of your ingredients for color, texture, and with a combination of taste, like broccoli, carrots, celery, or green peppers, and of course, tomatoes. To heighten the flavor, perhaps you might want to add some bacon bits, fried dry and crumbled, grated cheese, maybe some kind of cooked meat, ham or chicken, either diced or cut into strips, and if you have them, the crunchy taste of toasted croutons. To serve, put all the makings in a bowl and using 2 large spoons, toss to combine, top with your favorite salad dressing and toss again. For a quick, easy salad platter, slice tomatoes, add thinly sliced raw onion, sprinkle with fresh basil, and drizzle with red wine or balsamic vinegar. Garnish with a tomato rose.
Baked potatoes are synonymous with steak. They make a companion side dish for any meal, and a simple baked potato topped with chilies, sautéed vegetables, or leftovers can make a quick, light, and satisfying one-dish lunch or dinner. If you want a truly great, mealy, dry potato, never wrap in foil, for this only steams them, but instead prick the skin to prevent its bursting, rub it with butter, margarine, or oil, sprinkle it with salt, and bake in a 400-degree oven preheated for about an hour. Test for doneness with a toothpick or knife and serve with sour cream, yogurt, salt, pepper, or any other topping of your choice.
Whether you call it spaghetti, pasta, or noodles, it's all the same, only the shape is different. Pasta is quite filling and a little goes a long way. Usually a pound is plenty for 6 to 8 people. When cooking pasta, always be sure you have a large pot and allow at least 4 quarts of water per pound of pasta so that the individual pieces can float freely. Place the cold water on the stove and bring to a boil. Add 1½ teaspoon salt and about a tablespoon of oil to keep it from boiling over. Add 1/4 of the pasta at a time, pushing down with a long-handled fork as it softens. Cover and bring back to a boil. Check it after about 4 minutes, picking up a strand. Allow it to cool and take a bite. It should be soft and just slightly resistant. When done, pour into a colander over the sink and allow to drain. Transfer to a serving bowl and top with sauce. If you can't get to it immediately, toss with a little salad oil to keep from sticking. Pasta may also be cooked, then refrigerated for another time. Reheat by warming in a skillet with a little butter. Most of the casserole dishes called for cooked pasta, and all of it is cooked alike. Speaking of casseroles, they are quick, easy, and a great way to use up leftover meats and vegetables. They usually consist of a starch, such as noodles, macaroni, or rice, some liquid, such as milk or a canned soup, and a meat or veggie, which is usually cooked. Mix together over heat and turn into a greased baking dish which has been sprayed with vegetable oil. Top with butter, cheese, or breadcrumbs and bake in a preheated oven. When the top is dark and crusty and a spoon inserted into the center comes out hot and steamy, the casserole is done.
The perfect egg, like eggs themselves, is a subject of controversy. Eggs should be fresh and at room temperature, but never use a cracked one, which may contain salmonella. To poach the egg in boiling water, fill a large skillet 2/3 full, add a little lemon juice or vinegar to the water to help them hold their shape, bring to a boil, then reduce the heat until the bubbles gently break the surface. Crack an egg into a bowl, then gently slide into the simmering water and using a spoon, turn and form the egg. Cook for 3 or 4 minutes until firm and the whites are set. Remove with a slotted spoon, drain, season, and serve on toast.
Omelets are not just for breakfast. They also make a fabulous lunch or even a light dinner. They are simple, easy to make, and you can vary the seasonings and fillings almost any way you choose. For each omelet, break 2 medium eggs in a bowl, a dash of salt and pepper or other seasoning, add 1 tablespoon water and beat with a fork until foamy. Melt 1 tablespoon butter in a heated skillet. Add the beaten eggs, let set a minute, then lift and swirl until it covers the entire bottom. Cook over medium heat until the edges are well set and the top is still slightly runny. Use a spatula to carefully loosen the edges. Spoon about a half cup of any convenient filling, such as diced ham or sautéed veggies, in a row across the center, and with your spatula, carefully fold one side up over the filling, then the other to form an envelope. Good omelets should be firm but not dry. Tilt the pan and gently turn the omelet upside down on the plate so that the smooth side is up. Top with grated cheese, chili, bacon, or whatever sounds good to you.
Now let's tackle the biggest problem in the kitchen, how to get everything done and put on the table at the same time. First, read the recipe and note the cooking times. Plan ahead for the time required to defrost or bring to room temperature, as well as the time required to prepare the dish and preheat the oven. Until you gain experience, make yourself a simple time chart.
Plan your meal around the meat or main dish so that the items that take the longest go into the oven first. For the new cook, one-dish meals such as chilies, stews, and casseroles are ideal. Do everything possible ahead of time. Get the dessert out of the way early. Wash, dry, and refrigerate your salad greens. And have your garlic bread ready to pop in when the oven's empty. Keep busy and try not to waste time. Wash up the cooking dishes and put them away. Select your serving pieces, glassware, and set the table. Get out the pot holders and trivets you'll need to handle the hot dishes and have everything ready to go the minute the food is done.
Food should look good as well as be good to eat. Good cooks are true artists in the kitchen, and they use their food to create a picture. Color and texture are the tools, and you too can make it look like the magazine if you let yourself go.
The art of making food look good consists of the things you do to the food and the things you add to the plate, known as the garnish. Some of the things you might do to food could include different color combinations, such as the bright color of carrots added to the plate, or maybe the green of lettuce with a red tomato added in a salad. You might want to use different shapes, such as melon balls, or perhaps cut your bread with various shaped cookie cutters. Add interest to your cake by making swirls or designs in your frosting with a flat spatula or table knife, or perhaps peaks of egg white, or meringue as it's usually called. Spread the topping evenly on the top of your dessert, then gently pat the surface to raise tiny peaks. These will brown first and look beautiful. Garnishes are the vegetables or fruit, usually cut into attractive shapes that you place around food for appearance. Salads always look better when served on a bed of lettuce leaves, and sprigs of parsley add a decorative touch to any dish. Lemons and oranges are colorful and make easy fruit garnishes. Cut the lemon or orange in half, then cut a slice off the bottom so that it will stand upright. Cut tiny V-shaped notches around the top. Empty a little paprika or chili powder into a pie plate and just touch the notched top to pick up some of the red color. And what about topping a slice of lemon or orange with either a black olive or a maraschino cherry? Cut the top off a green pepper, clean out the ribs and seeds, then cut across into decorative rings. Slice a thin strip of peel from the tomato, then tightly curl into a tomato rose. And simple radish flowers are made with a few cuts, then dropping into ice water to open. The variety is almost endless. Look at the pictures in magazines and cookbooks and see if you can make your food equally pretty.
We've now shown you the basics, but we really want to inspire you to learn to cook well and create your own specialties.
Watch the TV chefs. Raid Mama's Kitchen for the family recipes. Clip magazine articles that appeal to you. Take photos of special things you've made and make notes on the variations of recipes you've tried.
Anyone can cook, and don't worry about that occasional failure, for after all, it's just a learning experience. Relax and have some fun, for it's fun to be able to create a meal that tastes good, looks pretty, and one that you can serve with a sense of pride and accomplishment. The French have a word for it: bon appetit.
This is The Cat, community access television on Cable Channel 8 in Fayetteville.